Okay, you all know me. I'm probably the only guy up for this that wore that Border Patrol uniform back in 1984. Let me tell you something. There's not a bigger bunch of American patriots than the men and women of Border Patrol.
Amen.
And I got to argue with a few people. I saw compassion the other day on the border. I saw a big burly Border Patrol agent kneel down and talk to a crying child. And within a couple minutes, that child cracked a smile. He gave him candy. That's where the compassion is. And you can argue all you want. You can hate President Trump, but no one can argue the fact that he gave us the most secure border in my lifetime, in my career. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan, and I respect every president I ever worked for because of the President of the United States. But the fact is, President Trump did more to secure this border than any president. Probably all 5 combined. Because Mr. Morgan, I'm sure, is going to talk to you about the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Illegal immigration is historic low. And they want to say this is seasonal, happens every year. That's a bunch of crap. Last March, 33,000 apprehensions. This March, 150,000 apprehensions. Tell me how that's seasonal. That's not seasonal at all. That's based on this administration's politics. Commissioner Morgan's going to talk about what's going on the border. I want to talk about what happens after the fact, because no one's talking about it. What happens to these thousands of people being released in the United States? They're not going anywhere. They're never leaving. And there's 2 data points I want to share with you, and I hope you report it, because this administration was aware of it, and so wasn't President Trump. And let me tell you how they handled it differently. If you go to the DOJ website, the Immigration Court website, and look at Central Americans, let's just use them for example. Of all the Central Americans that claim fear at the border, that want to file for asylum, 86 to 89% don't qualify because they either don't show up in court or they lose the case. They simply don't qualify. So when you got 9 out of 10 people who claim in fear at the border that does not get relief from U.S. courts, that tells you we got a problem. President Trump recognized that and said, well, 9 out of 10 don't win. Why do we let them in the United States release them and never see them again? Let's keep them in Mexico. They'll still get the due process, but on our schedule, and we don't have all these people released. The second data point that Donald Trump realized was, if you go to a Homeland Security Life Cycle Report, less than 3% of the hundreds of thousands of families that lost their case, that 90%, that lost their case, less than 3% left. So if you got 9 out of 10 committing some sort of fraud at the border and less than 3% of them leave, you got a problem. President Trump addressed it, saying, I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. This administration has the same data that I just reported to you. And their answer is, let's release more. And not only release more, let's release them even quicker. I'll share during the first family surge in FY14, you know what we did? We built the first family residential center. We held families for about 40, 45 days. In a family residential center, not a jail, 90% lost their case. We put them on an airplane and sent them home. And guess what happened? The border numbers plummeted. Then the Ninth Circuit, in their genius ways, they said, you can't hold them for 40 days. You don't want to hold them for 20. And we told them, if you make that decision and not allow us to hold them long enough to see a judge, you're going to see border surges like you've never seen before. I put in my affidavit. What did I was called a fear monitor. I had no evidence of this. And guess what happened? They said 20 days, families surged up. We had an unprecedented border surge at that time. These are the facts. And what is this administration doing? They're even going further left than the Ninth Circuit and saying 20 days. How about 3? Now the law says 3 for children, but let's say 3 for families. They're going so far left, they fell off the table a long time ago. Now I'm talking to you like I know what's going on, but apparently I really don't know what's going on because I was kicked off the Homeland Security Advisory Council last week. They don't want to hear from a 34-year veteran who wore the uniform, who spent 3 decades investigating criminal cartels that smuggle people, who actually dealt with a border surge at Southfield. They don't want to hear from us. Why? Because this administration has no intention of enforcing the law. ICE has been gutted. ICE isn't deporting hardly anybody anymore unless you're a convicted aggravated felon, which means all those family groups I talked about that ignore the final order and less than 3% left, what is their penalty for ignoring the judge's order after we put them in front of the judge at great taxpayer expense? What's their penalty from hiding and ignoring a federal judge's order? Their penalty, they're getting the amnesty. And these thousands of people being released in the country now, they're not going anywhere either. Because ICE is not removing fugitives of immigration law. You think that's by accident? They decided to gut ICE at the same time 1,000 people are being released in the United States, and ICE is the agency responsible for removing people to final orders? This is by design. This isn't incompetence. This isn't they don't know what they're doing. Remember, Joe Biden was vice president during the 14-15 surge they just talked about. And Alejandro Mayorkas is deputy secretary. They know what causes surges. They know how to stop them. I was there. They're doing the complete opposite when they know it's going to fix it. The complete opposite. And I want to end with this. I started as a Border Patrol agent, and what I've seen the last 2 days, when you got, when these men and women are being attacked and vilified, I know Mark Morgan's going to talk about this because he commanded these brave patriots. They're American heroes, they're American patriots, and it's a shame when their commander-in-chief attacks them. When the secretary don't admit there's a crisis. Me and Mark Morgan went down to the team the other day. Border Patrol agent yelled out, he actually yelled out to me. I turned around, he walked up to me, he thanked me. And Mark Morgan, he goes, you know what? Our president won't admit this problem. Our secretary won't admit this problem. Thank you and the Commissioner Morgan for out there yelling and screaming, trying to tell American people the truth. You're our only hope. This comes from someone who's strapping a gun to his hip, putting his life on the line every day for this country. And they've been abandoned by this president. The first president in the history of this country who's facilitating illegal immigration, who's facilitating cross-country crime. There is no downside on a secure border. There's no downside on 31% of women not being raped. There's no downside in children not dying. There's no downside in children being put in the arms of criminal cartels. There's no downside unless illegal narcotics come across this border. So explain to me why this administration refuses to enforce the law. There's one reason. This is Open Borders' agenda. This is their plan, and it's happening in front of your eyes today. With that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Mark Morgan, who has much more to say.